Hey man, listen up. When you walk in your greatness, you make those who don't understand it uncomfortable. They can't fathom your passion, your conviction, and your grind. It's almost like you speaking a foreign language. You have a calling over your life, and that calling requires you to become a different version of yourself. And that different version of yourself requires you to change. And when you change, it requires you to grow. And people hate growth. So most times their intimidation is only a reflection of their love. And they don't want you to go. But you got a calling over your life, so it requires you to grow. So when you walk in your greatness, you make those who don't understand it uncomfortable. Keep a rich mentality.
Hey, Shalom. All praises to Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai Bashem Rakakodash. Hey, much mercy to you sincere brothers out there, the true house of David. All you brothers that's with God in these days and that really understand his covenant and that understand who you are, you know, that you are of God. Being able to see Yahweh Shai, being able to know him, and being able to know the Lord and understand the Lord because you could feel it. Shalom to you, and then shalom to all you false prophets out there and you false brethren that don't have the decency to teach our people wholly. And the only way to be whole is explaining the Lord, having our people become more strengthened in the Lord. You know, it's about strengthening the elect. Salakia. It's about strengthening the election and those of God through the teachings of the Lord. This is what you got to understand. So when you understand the Lord and what his walk was about, it was about strengthening those that walk with him, that believed with him. And that's what this word is for. That's why this Bible is only for those that are of God. Now, our people, they have a zeal for the Lord, not according to the knowledge. But the Bible is originally for the elect and the ones that are of God. That's not going to be the world's not going to like them. That's why the ones of God in this time will go through the things that the Lord had to go through. And the things that the Lord went through is that he was healing and having people believe, but the world and the powers that be, they didn't like what the Lord was actually doing. So now in this time, just strengthening our people spiritually, that has a big effect on everything, because it's like not everybody's going to be able to be strengthened spiritually. Only a few are. The majority of people, they're going to be mentally weak and of the world. So the thing about these last days is that these scriptures cause you to separate and be with God one-on-one. And that is the connection that you're looking for in these days, not a connection of the world. When you go into circumcision of the new covenant, because guys are carnal, they think a circumcision is something carnal that pertains to the old covenant, but dealing with the new covenant, circumcision is circumcising your heart. That means circumcising yourself from the world, the ways of the world, or access flesh or baggage. And this is something that we have to do to bring us closer to the Lord. And that's why we urge guys to separate from the camps, because Once you can separate from the camps first, then that is a major step in your life spiritually, because you will not be able to see at all being in these camps, being in the world. So the election cannot be sealed unless they come out of the circumcised multitude, as the scriptures tell you. Because by men teaching against the Lord, they're enemies of God. That's why the Lord said, if guys deny me on the earth, the Lord, you're being denied in the heavens. The Lord is denying you. So the majority of people, they're really denying God. They're not really, they think they're doing everything on their own, because of the majority of people, they're carnal. So you got to understand in these times that to grow, it takes separation. Sirach 6:13, it says, separate thyself from thy enemies and take heed of thy friends. So you have to separate yourself in this time. And what's heavy is that the heart of circumcision is going to pretty much automatically have you separate. It's going to have you separate from the world automatically. Like you ain't going to be able to be of the world. That's why the Lord tells you too in John, I think that's John 16, but they shall put you out of the synagogues. Why? Because you had to be cut off from the flesh, because you have a different type of mind. You have a different type of heart that doesn't go with everybody. 2 Corinthians 6:17, wherefore come out from among them and be ye separate, says the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. You see that? So you got to come out from among the multitude, the way of thinking in these last days. The most important thing is just repenting unto the new covenant. That's all it is. It's just understanding the Lord's words in red and just repenting unto God and separating yourself. That will do you better than being amongst an uncircumcised multitude and minds and men that are against God in these days. That first step will do you way better, because guys are in multitudes and groups and churches and camps or whatever that are really against the Lord, but they're using the Lord. And to separate from the unclean multitude, that will have you in a better position spiritually, just by separating yourself from these camps, groups, and organizations that's out there that's telling you that you can't be with your Lord. And certain of us was with the Lord back in those times, and certain of us are back with the Lord in the spirit, are really with the Lord. But if you're really of the Lord is going to separate you from the unclean multitude. He's going to get you from amongst the multitude. He's going to pull you out of that. So a lot of guys that's not really being pulled out of camps, or that find themselves stuck around the multitude and unequally yoked with unbelievers, that's yoked together with unbelievers, Salakia, they're of the world. This is John 16:2. It says, they shall put you out of the synagogue and out of the synagogues. Yea, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think that he doeth God's service. So the Lord is telling you that certain men are going to be put out of the synagogues. So certain men are created to be separated from the uncircumcised multitude. That's why you being a Jew outwardly, it don't really mean anything in this time. You separating yourself from the multitude, that means everything. That's why the new covenant is spiritual. It's not a doctrine that includes the world. It's a doctrine that you're going to have to separate and be with God one-on-one. That's why the Lord will go and go pray in the mountains and be alone, because actually he was separate. He wasn't of the world like that. So if you're really not of the world, you're going to have to be separated. But if you're of the world, you're going to stay amongst the multitude. You see what I'm saying? This is what you got to understand. The Lord set it up to where his men at a certain point in their life, they're going to have to be separated from the multitude. They're going to have to be put out of the synagogues. Why? So they could have more time with God, and the Lord can actually show you things. Yeah, so when you understand Yahweh Shai, there are more things revealed unto you alone. I want to read this real quick. Luke 9. Because just like when the Lord took them up on the mountain, it mentions this here in Luke. But Luke explains it kind of in a different way, but the same concept. The Lord would take his disciples on a mountain alone to show them things. Now, he's not able to show you things around certain people. You have to separate and be alone. Then you'll be able to the Lord can show you more things. And that's part of the understanding of going on that mountain too, and able to go on a mountain, because you think of it, a mountain is high. So the Lord had Peter, James, and John on that mountain high alone by themselves, and he was able to show them that vision, which by the Lord showing them that vision, that vision gave them an understanding of the Lord. It gave them the order of the Spirit on that mountain. And one of the things it showed you is that the Lord can't really reveal secrets unto you except you be alone. You see, it was those three. And that's how the Lord is actually dealing. You got to look at the elect, is that they're on that mountain with the Lord alone. You got to really look at it, because when you really look at this truth, the new heart requires you to separate. So one of the things about the heart of flesh and Yahweh Shai and really understanding this truth is that it does not involve the world. Now, the things of the world, they may be they may be enticing to the flesh and the eyes and all that shit, but the spirit doesn't involve the world. Meaning that what the Lord is revealing to his men, what he revealed on that mountain, when they went up on that mountain, it didn't involve the multitude. So you understanding the order of the Lord and understanding certain things is not going to involve a lot of people. Now I want to read Luke 9. The same story is in Matthew, but it's a little bit different through the eyes of Luke. You know, all the prophets, Matthew, John, Luke, and Mark, they were recording the Lord's life, and they all had a testimony of the Lord. That is a true testimony, explaining the Lord's life, and that is the gospel. So by your understanding too, by understanding the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and Paul, and all their testimonies, by you teaching, you're supposed to be able to give a testimony of the Lord. And only a few are going to be able to really explain the Lord like that. The rest of you guys, you're in a situation where the world is in a situation, like guys in these camps, they're in a situation where they are not teaching the Lord wholly, and they're denying him at the same time for the world, for the doctrines of the world. So I want to go into Luke 9 real quick, because if you can't really separate, then you won't be able to see certain things that the Lord is actually saying. You know, the reason me and a few brothers really understand this covenant and understand the Lord is because the Lord separated us from fucking the multitude and from certain people and from a lot of things, even fucking people in our family and shit. You know, like this understanding this truth, it doesn't include everybody. So even you might be around people at times, you're still going to be alone because your mind is going to be so far alone. This is Luke 9:28. And it came to pass about 8 days after these sayings, he took Peter, John, and James, and went up onto the mountain to pray. Right. So again, when the Lord is showing you certain things, he had to deal with you alone. That's why these guys in these camps, they don't have no understanding, because they're bunched up in these groups, and God is not dealing with guys. The Lord is not dealing with groups and broad paths and shit. Broad gates. The Lord's not dealing with broad gates. He's not dealing with everybody. Luke 9 and 29 and 29. As he prayed, the fashion of his countenance was altered, and his raiment was white and glittering. And behold, there talked with him 2 men, which were Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke of his decease, which he should accomplish at Jerusalem. Who appeared in glory and spake of his decease, which he should accomplish at Jerusalem. So this whole thing was about the Lord coming here and dying, this whole thing is about the new covenant starting back then, and the temple will being men. And the order of things is the Lord. It says, who appeared in glory and spake of his decease, which he should accomplish at Jerusalem. But Peter and they that were with him were heavy with sleep. And when they awake, they saw his glory, and the 2 men stood with him. Right. And then it was so heavy that they fell asleep, just like when the Lord was when he prayed, they fell asleep then too, because to a certain point, it was just things that the Lord had to go through by himself alone, and then it get to a certain point to where the Lord was revealing certain things unto them alone. So it's like the Lord was going through certain walks by himself, and then at the same time, at certain times, he was revealing things unto his uh, his closest servants alone. You see what I'm saying? So this is a path you have to walk on your own, but only with just a few. Let me read this again. It says, but Peter, when they were with him, were heavy with sleep. And when they were awoke, they stood and saw his glory and the two men that stood with him. And it came to pass as they departed from him, Peter said unto Yahushua, Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah, not knowing what he said. And while he spake, there came a cloud and overshadowed them, and they feared as they entered the cloud. And there came a voice out of the cloud saying, This is my beloved Son, hear ye him. So this vision right here, this is a very important vision. It's not like this. This is one of the heaviest things that a lot of the things that the Lord was doing was heavy. But I love this story because it's really showing you in the spirit that the Lord is the most important thing dealing with the Bible. But this ain't for everybody to understand like that. This was only just for Peter, James, and John. So when you look at it, like everybody, talking about the new covenant ain't here, and they deny the covenant, and they hate the teaching of the new covenant. It's just that the Lord didn't reveal that unto men like that. He didn't reveal that. And if you're of God, the Lord's going to reveal to you certain things that he's not revealing to everybody else. You're going to get certain things, and you're going to see things that's not for everybody else. All right? A lot of you guys too, and I know, a lot of you brothers are repenting. That's all we're telling guys to do. Separate yourself so the Lord can show you more things, more understanding. He's not going to show you more understanding you being around men and people like that don't really have the Lord's interest in them. You have to separate from these demons. That's why the scripture, when you go to the Lord's asked that guy, what was his name? It said his name is Legion. They are many. The legions are where the many is. That's why you don't want to basically, you don't want to be around the uncircumcised multitude. So that's what the circumcision of the heart is, cutting the flesh off from people that's not circumcised of the heart. And the more you do that, the more the Lord can show you things. That's why you have to separate yourself from the Lord to show you more things, and he'll show you more things. Right? The scripture say, don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers. Right? Don't be unequally yoked with people that don't have no faith, with people that really don't believe in God. And the example is these camps and these groups, which the pinpoint is these camps and these groups and the doctrines of the world, these organizations, because they have a strong hold on our people, the majority of them, keeping them away from God, even when they say they're teaching God, but they're really keeping you away from the Lord by telling you you can't be with the Lord. But what they don't really understand is certain men have a connection with God already, like Peter, James, and John. When he took Peter, James, and John on that mount, they were close to the Lord already, so he took them up to a higher place. And that's what the Lord is doing with certain of us brothers. He's taking us up to a higher place because we've separated ourselves. And you're not alone. You're with God. But in order for the Lord to show you things and you can understand more things, you have to separate yourself so the Lord can take you up and show you higher things. That's what this thing is about. So if you can't separate, then you'll stay with well, the scripture tell you in Numbers, it says, follow not a multitude to do evil. And I think I'm going to get this story of the Legion, but this right here in Luke 9, and then when you go to, I think it's Matthew 17 too, when he took them up on the mount, this is very symbolic, and it shows you that not everybody's going to know Yahweh Shai is high. Not everybody's going to understand that Yahweh Shai, the Lord didn't want to show everybody that vision like that. So the Lord wants you to know that the Lord is where the power is in the scriptures, basically. And so if you are able to teach the Lord in the scriptures and understand him, then you will be of him. You're one of those men that walk with the Lord, that he was showing those higher things to, if you get what I'm saying. Not everybody walked with the Lord and was able to go up on that mountain. Just like now in the spirit, in certain places that we're going that a lot of guys can't go. That's why the separation has to be as it is. And it's nothing of the multitude in the world. That's why it's not about numbers. When the Lord took them up on that mountain alone, the multitude wasn't there. In certain instances, he would send the multitude away throughout the scriptures. Yeah, the multitude will probably get fed, but some of those higher things that the Lord was really showing, like to Peter when he told Peter, this is my rock and this is how I'm going to build my church, that was symbolic of him telling Peter that he's going to be the temple. And I'm going to put my spirit in Peter. And that's symbolic of the Lord being in the elect. Just like this meeting on the mount was for his closest men to really understand that the Lord is higher than everything in the scriptures. And that's the most important person that you need to be speaking about, understanding the Lord. And how the Lord is taking certain men on those high mountains alone in this time, showing them things. But you have to separate from the multitude. You can't follow the legions. The many is not where it is right now. And the Lord is showing you that in the spirit. But you have to be spiritual. Guys that's carnal, their whole thing is the multitude and numbers and this, that, and the third. Luke 9:35, it says, and there came out a voice out of the cloud saying, this is my beloved son, hear him. And the voice was passed and Yahushua was found alone. So Yahushua, understanding Yahushua, this is an understanding that not too many people are going to have. People may say they understand it, but they're not really applying it and moving to it. That means that they haven't really been shown anything. A lot of guys are of the world teaching the Bible. That's why to understand certain shit, you have to separate. If you really can't separate and be by yourself with you and the Lord only, then you won't have that type of understanding. That's why everybody is in the same spirit. Oh, the new covenant's here. People don't believe this because the Lord is not supping with them. Guys are of the world. The higher things are not for them. It says, when the voice was passed, Yahushua was found alone, and they kept it close and told no man in those days any of those things which they had seen. Woo! So a certain thing the Lord is showing that he showed to them, he's showing the certain of us, and it's not for everybody to see. Everybody is not supposed to really see that the covenant's here. Everybody's not really supposed to believe in Yahushua. Everybody's not really supposed to know the Lord like that. So it's their place to deny the Lord. You see what I'm saying? It's for them to be like, oh, the covenant ain't here. They don't understand it because the Lord didn't take them up on that mountain to see. You see what I'm saying? So you got to understand that the Lord is not showing men higher understanding. He's not dealing with everybody. And one of the only ways to to look at this thing is that you have to separate. You have to like separate yourself from the multitude. You see what I'm saying? And let me read this real quick. Let me go here. Let me read this, and this is proof. Mark 5:1, and they came over on the other side of the sea into the country of Gadarenes. And when he was come out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwellings among the tombs, and had no man, it says, and no man could bind him, no, not with chains. Check this out. So, because this guy had heavy demons on him, he had strong demons on him, no man could like bind him. You see? And a lot of you guys are like that with this world. You got strong, heavy, you're strong and heavy with the world. You see what I'm saying? Like guys that's exalted. You have power of the world, but you don't have power over the spirit. You see what I'm saying? A lot of you guys are like that. It says, who had his dwelling among the tombs, and had no man could bind him, no, not with chains, because he had been often bound with fetters and chains had been plucked asunder by him, and the fetters broken into pieces. Neither could any man tame him. Right, a lot of guys, they're so, if you look at it too, a lot of guys they have a place so much heavy in this world, it seems like nobody can bring them down. You see what I'm saying? When you're like famous in the world, or you're heavy in the world. But what this is showing you, that having Yahweh Shai is nothing impossible when you actually have the Lord. Now this guy, he had them heavy spirits on him, and nobody could lift them spirits except Yahweh Shai. It says, because he had been often bound with fetters and chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder, and his fetters broken in pieces, neither could any man tame him. It says, and always night and day he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones. Right. It's heavy, man. And what are these guys doing? They're cutting themselves too in the spirit, when you look at it. Because when you go to the scriptures and really understand the scriptures, you'll understand that guys are cutting themselves, not understanding Yahweh Shai, because what the scriptures do, they're lining up with what we're saying and what the covenant is really about. So really, guys are cutting themselves. It says, always day and night in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones. But when he saw Yahweh Shai far off, he ran and worshipped him. You see that? So let me read that again. But when he saw Yahweh Shai afar, he ran and worshipped him. Right? So Yahweh Shai has power over spirits. So when you go back to the mountain, that's why the Lord told Peter that he was his rock. And that's why the Lord said, too, don't be happy that you have power over the spirits. Just be happy that your name is written in heaven. He said, I give you power over serpents. So this guy with these heavy demons on him, the Lord had power over this guy. It says, but when he saw Yahweh Shai fall off, he ran and cried with a loud voice and said, what we have to do with thee, O Yahweh Shai, Yahweh Shai, son of the most high power, I adjure thee by God that thou torment me not. For he said unto him, come out of the man, thou unclean spirit. And he asked him, what is thy name? And he said, answered him, my name is Legion, for we are many. So Yahushua being of the Lord and being one of the Lord's men, being of God, you have that same power over those spirits. By what? Honoring Yahushua, by moving like him. See, everybody's not going to move like him. And so everybody don't have the power over the spirits. So a lot of guys, they're actually being tormented by the teaching of Yahushua. That's how so effective it is. And all you have to do is just teach the Lord. That's all we have to do is just teach the Lord. And it's so effective that it is pulling spirits off of some guys, and guys are repenting. That's why guys hate it, because the Lord is not dealing with the many. So you got to come out of the many. The demon said, our name, it says, and he asked him, he says, what is thy name? And he answered him saying, my name is Legion, for we are many. So you don't want to be around the many. That's the point I want to get to too. So Yahushua, he has power over all these demons. The new covenant has power over all these demons, but the new covenant is not for everybody. It hasn't been shown to everybody like that on a deep level. That's why a lot of people can't believe in it, because the Lord is not taking men in the mountains and showing them things. He's not taking men and showing them certain things in the spirit to really have you sure of God, you know? So the many is not the place to be. The thing about it is, the Lord can only show you certain things when you separate yourself alone. And I have to speak a little bit later on this, but you have to understand that in order to elevate in the spirit and for the Lord to show you more things, you have to get away from the uncircumcised multitude. And brothers that actually have the heart of flesh, the Lord is going to bring you out of that. You're going to have to come out of that anyway. That's why the Lord said they will kick you out of synagogues, because eventually you're going to have to come out of the world. For all you brothers that are chosen, and it's meant for the Lord to show you certain things. Well, with that, I'm going to get out of here. I'll speak with you brothers a little later. Continue to repent and bring yourself out of the unclean multitude. Because by you coming out of that multitude, the Lord can show you higher things in the spirit. And with that, shalom. Pleasant out, Pluto.